Ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, we're doing an LEC rundown. This is going to be a long one. We're going to be talking about the format. We're going to be talking about the tier lists. We're talking about the new changes in terms of what the rosters have done. We're going to do predictions. We're going to talk about the meta 13.11. Before that, I wanted to also advertise the fact that I'll be co-streaming everything, guys. Co-streaming everything starting tomorrow. We're going to be doing some Invictus Gaming versus EDG. We'll see if I wake up earlier than that, considering I just came back from a long haul flight. IG versus EDG, a very exciting one because EDG is going to be playing Uzi. Woo! Uzi debut, followed by Top Esports FPX, co-streamed of course. I have the rights to work with the LPL, followed by some Carmine Core versus Vitality B, followed by some co-streaming of Cloud9 versus Golden Guardians. Of course, we're going to be doing the entire LCS, and then we'll follow up with some T1 versus Live Sandbox the next day. We'll be co-streaming all of the major regions. Always when LPL and LCK is on, we're always trying to handpick the more exciting matchup. And we'll be following Carmine Corp in the LFL too. And then of course, following everything else, the LEC is going to of course start. And when the LEC starts, which is on the Saturday, we will of course be doing co-views, and everything will be in the nutsack. We'll be in the sack. So I'll be joining Dom tomorrow, and whoever wants to be, of course, is welcome. LEC so late? No, it's not LEC so late. It's just Saturday, and basically the schedule has run out of space. Let me see if I can remove some of these, and then you guys get to see the LEC schedule too. So here's the LEC schedule. So as you can see, the LEC schedule starts here 18 o'clock on Saturday, and then rock and roll. LCS is today, LCS is not today. It is tomorrow. Tomorrow the co-streams will resume, and we'll be starting with EDG Uzi. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be an LEC rundown, and we're going to be focusing on the LEC. First and foremost, 13.11, I think it's good to cover any type of news. I want to make sure that you guys know that Rel is going to be disabled, and Ivern is going to be disabled too. I think that Rel is a champion that has gotten a lot of buffs back and forth. I think this champion has potential, but we don't need to dwell on it too much. I think that Ivern has way more potential than Rel. I think that Ivern is a champion that can be played in support, can be played in jungle, can be played in solo lanes. I think this champion is super exciting. I think this champion is low-key busted. What are the important points of 13.11? I think that the biggest ones is we have some Aphelios nerfs, some Jinx nerfs, but I don't think it's going to affect them too much. Aurelion Sol got a little bit of a nerf. Azir got a little, actually kind of a big buff. I think the bigger buff for Azir is the fact that, of course, there's changes to the minions are in mid lane. Which is something that was implemented in 13.10. The window to roam, if you decide to push first, is limited, so we're going to see a lot less of that from minute 0 to 14. So basically, the minions in mid meet at the same time as side lanes, meaning the side lane minions are moving faster. This also changes some of the windows in terms of how you can cheat a base and how fast you can push, and you know, you're pushing windows because the minions meet faster. But in terms of how you freeze and how the minions maneuver, it doesn't matter too much because, of course, both minion waves move equally fast. But the key thing is just mages are very happy with these type of changes. But this type of change also can be worked from, can be reverse engineered in the idea that, of course, you are in a position where if you begin to roam before the next wave, you also have a bigger window to be on that wave and crash a stacking wave. So I don't think dives are completely dead. Dives are still completely a thing because it works in reverse too, right? It's like if you decide to sack a mid wave, it takes longer for the enemy mid to push in order to force you to show. So something that you can see, something that I wish more teams did, especially like if you watch some of my K-Cop stuff, is that on those neutral mid waves, if you are for example, the Ahri versus the Talia, that you hide and fog more and wait for these minions to die, because you can create so much pressure during that window. Because the window that the mid lane has to use in order to push and approach the wave, that window creates a larger window where you can impact the bot wave that is crashing in, right? So it works in reverse too. So I think dives will still happen bot, and then additionally, like in terms of how minions work, if the minions begin to hit the turret, they will never switch targets, which of course affects some range versus range matchups. Some range champion can fire back under the turret, If you're playing, for example, Lulu versus Milio, and you are harassing the enemy AD, he can fight back without the range minions actually attacking you. If minions ever attack a turret, they never change target, which is a massive change in terms of how some lane dynamics are, especially range versus range matchups, because those are the matchups where you can fight back under the turret, right? Other than that, I think the big changes, of course, are like we have some Kalista changes. I think this is fine and all, but I think that she still has a bit of a problem in terms of itemization. I think Ginzu is an item that got heavily exaggerated in terms of power. I think that Ginzu is very strong on AD carries that had mixed damage and kind of felt really bad to buy LDR on. Very bad to play by, of course, also Void Staff on. And the Mythic passive is very powerful, but I think a lot of the ADs that have a level of pure physical damage aren't super excited by Ginzu, but I think these changes are very positive and in the right direction, right? I think this is very positive and in the right direction. I think that Kalista might see some play. Still, I think that the range support is super strong, and maybe some Kalista connoisseurs will play it. Rek'Sai top, I'll talk about it a little bit more when we break down top. Renekton as well. I think Renekton top is an interesting one as an AD blind in cases where maybe you have a Rumble in the jungle. You have a Rumble connoisseur, and you have like a combination of maybe, like, let's say Renekton, Nidalee, Jace. Maybe there's someone that's going to be playing that, or maybe a Maokai comp. Renekton is an AD blind. I think that will definitely find some play. TF is also one of those champions that can enjoy some Trinity Force, especially the changes to rapid fire. He can actually use the AD, but it's not something that I'm super excited about, because I think that TF pacing in the game is a little bit too slow, and being weaker around mid and the fights around Drake is definitely like an issue. Ardent Sensor nerf, this isn't like the mega big one. It gets nerfed again on the next patch, so I think that still will be bought. Duskblade of Draktar, something more of a solo queue relevant item, maybe some Samira gameplay. I know that of course Prince is playing it. Echoes of Helia is nerfed, but I still think it's a strong item. Galeforce got really nerfed on 13.12, so Galeforce will still see play. Kraken Slayer got a little bit of a rework. This is an item that got stronger to rush because of the improved AD scaling, and also the flat damage also improved. The weird thing about AD carry is the fact that the bigger buff to Kraken in terms of, if you look at Kraken as an item that wants to be purchased, then the biggest buff to Kraken is the fact that of course Stormrazor got nerfed. Stormrazor got a pretty hefty nerf, and I still think that there is kind of a balance of where the AD carries that did enjoy these specific items will still buy them. For example, I still see a lot of affiliates buying Stormrazor first, because some of these other attack speed heavy items don't feel as good. Runan's Hurricane, it got nerfed 15 damage, was a big deal because of how the Hurricane shots work. This is a pretty big buff, I would say, for Navori Quick Blades in terms of moving the Mythic passive to 5 AD and giving it 5 AD for 5 ability haste, and then increasing the Transcendence cooler reduction. I think this is something that of course the likes of Xayah can be very happy with. I think something that I would personally want to experiment as well with is like, how good can Essence Reaver and Navori Quick Blades as you'll be with such a change, because I think this Mythic passive just got better, and I think a lot of the AD carries that do indeed hit of course enjoy the 3 additional % cooler reduction. But the issue, of course, that Galeforce is still a very strong buy. I think in cases where you need more DPS and more oomph on something like Xayah, this can definitely be a purchase. Static Shiv, something that I don't know, it was kind of strange to see, I don't know if you guys saw Abel get penalized. He had to sell it, lost 900 Gs, but that was on 13.10, so I'm assuming the bug has been fixed. That was kind of rough. At the end of the day, I would say that this is an item that could potentially be rushed, but I wouldn't say so 100%. Humans, of course, got nerfed, God bless, so we'll see a lot less that. And then we have buff sharing, meaning that everyone has this Ivan mechanic after they've completed their jungle camp. So this is on the patch where red buff didn't get nerfed, because red buff is inherently really OP, and the fact that there's more red buffs in the game is something that impacts some combinations. If there's some junglers and ADs that can both utilize red buff or utilize blue, I think red buff is more the standout. They are definitely happy with this change. For example, if you're playing Kindred, you get a red, your AD gets a red, that's a really big deal in terms of the power that you have walking into a fight. It's very hard to put a concrete number value on the power of red, but it's like for sure above 1k gold, 2k gold if you're walking into a fight. So this is something definitely to pay attention to. And obviously the range champions are a lot happier to use red. And of course there's the health regen portion of it too that is pretty interesting as the game progresses. And of course this works both ways. If someone takes your jungle camp, you get to pick it up. But in terms of how it changes the game, right? Let's talk about top lane first. Top lane is, of course, a role that has been relatively the same for so long. So like the first champions that come to mind is Gragas. I will put him in the S tier. I think K'Sante as well belongs in the S tier. I think just naturally these two champs have just so much flexibility. I think there's a lot of good answers into them, but the fact that they can go into multiple roles, multiple positions, and also they fit in a context where bot lane is so strong. I think that's so important that currently bot lane is the strongest role in the game. And as long as that is true, champions that kind of adapt themselves to that in a very, very good way, where they are very resource friendly, they set up their teammates for success, those champions are going to, of course, excel. In regards to like additional champions that can stand out, I think that Gwen is definitely up there in terms of a champion that can find a lot of power. I would argue, you know, a part of me wants to kind of move this champion down because I'm kind of blinded by the fact that I watch a lot of LPL. So maybe just because it's LEC, we're going to move that down to A tier. We're going to also rename C tier to OTP and then D tier to, let's say, new, because some champions I wouldn't personally be you know, comfortable enough to point to. What other champions stand out? I would probably put Sion up here too. I think Sion definitely belongs here too, but I think he's a tier below the rest, these two homies. Gwen can be argued to be put up, but we already talked about it. I think that Ornn is definitely a champion that can be played too. I think in terms of a champion that got a pretty decent buff, I would say is Gnar. Gnar, considering, you know, Gnar got a pretty decent second item purchase in what is Hullbreaker. Hullbreaker got a pretty decent stat buff, and I think that Gnar fits some niche positions. And I think that Gnar is a decent champion. I think that in the context of seeing Gragas and K'Sante at the top here, Gnar can be played into both, and there's some decent Gnar plays in the LEC. I think it definitely deserves to be mentioned there. In regards to the B tier, some other champions that can stand out is potentially Cannon. You know, Cannon kind of dislikes the fact that tanks are really happy on top. Tanks are very good champions into Cannon. I think for a while there, people got kind of that Cannon craze. But people kind of set the record straight, you know. In the end, it's like the best champions you can pick into Cannon are the tanks, and the tanks are very prevalent right now, but a very skilled Cannon player can definitely do some harm and work. I want you to take this tier list in a way where, you know, I think it's more of a how often they'll be doing okay in a game, right? It's like an S tier champion is a champion that does okay in many games. Doesn't necessarily mean, like, if a champion would be Z tier, it would mean that I want you to first pick it, you know, and really smurf it. But S tier champ is just, this champion will do well in a lot of games, and I think that there's definitely answers, but the fact that it's blind pick, I think will mean that we will see these champions, you know, with the highest presence. It's like the higher up they are, the more reasonable a high presence is, in my opinion. That's what the tier list is. We have Papushka. I think Malphite can be mentioned. I would put Malphite in B tier. I don't think it's super exciting personally. I think if it was a different region, probably I put Jax higher, and then potentially like Fiora. But at the same time, it's like I would want to like make an additional tier, like a Dawn tier, and I would like put Fiora there, you know. Like I think probably I don't want to see some Fiora in Europe. I think in terms of OTP, I think still, you know, Darius can still be played, considering you see a lot of tanks. I think Olaf is still really fucking strong. I think Olaf, like in the context of this, it's like I would borderline put it here. Got a bit of a nerf, but in the end, it's like Olaf is still really fucking strong, and we have really good Olaf players here in Europe. I still think Garen has a spot, has a position. I think Gangplank, if you're really fucking good at it, you can also play it in some cases. And then I would also add probably Rumble. I think these are some champions that I think that might have some potential room. We can add Jace here too, but I think in a lot of cases where Jace is open, probably Jace is going to be sent mid. It's just easier to maneuver Jace in mid, I would say. because Jace doesn't like super much to play into the tanks. I think that in the end, you know, if anyone is playing Jace top, you know, I think it's like maybe OTP tier, but it's more like a Dawn tier, I would say. No, I think that Rek'Sai is an interesting one, but I'm too inexperienced with Rek'Sai to say that I would be ready to rate it. Rek'Sai got some massive buffs. Let me just highlight them here, just so you can visualize it better. So basically, Tremor Senses, the tech is every 1 second, which is a good buff. You have also the health, 2% maximum health for every 3 levels. This is pretty massive. Like the heal is really big and is very frustrating to lane against a Rek'Sai. The Q cooldown down is of course something that top lane can utilize a lot easier because you're punching the wave. And I think that Rek'Sai is just on paper very, very strong. How will it utilize itself? It's like eventually going to reach a point where you're in game and you're actually playing Rek'Sai. And I have a hard time imagining how that exactly will play out. But I can see a world where maybe Rek'Sai is too strong and him flashing on your AD, hitting twice with Q into E and R, maybe is just enough to win the game. And maybe that is going to be true. A part of me is thinking, you know, what if Rek'Sai plays against Gragas or K'Sante? You know, what's going to happen then? And then will he find use then? Maybe, maybe not. Because in the end, it's like him hitting turrets is not ultra realistic. Maybe there's her hitting turret. I don't know how well she will maneuver that, but I think that she has potential. But I'll put her in the new column. Renekton, I think, is just a champion that will be blindable and playable. I think the E buff is big, Stridebreaker changes, interesting. You know, I think very painful for Renekton. The fact that, you know, Prowler's Claw got deleted, even though we didn't see a lot of Prowler's Claw Renekton top. I think Renekton as a blind pick will see some play, and there might be a situation where Renekton will be picked a lot. What else is missing there? Maybe I would add, maybe Cho'Gath. I think probably Akshan, we could put him in the Dawn tier. I think sometimes maybe there's room for Aatrox, you know, there's the standard cookie cutter champions, but I think this is a pretty comprehensive list. I think Karma, sure, can be picked. I think Karma definitely has some spots. I think Karma is strong. Irelia, not so much. You have to consider, you know, what is going to be picked the most often. I think Irelia is not so much. Ivern is Grief. Ivern is disabled. I think Ivern is really strong though. Camille, not so much. I think at this point, I'm ready to move on. All right, let's just duplicate this side to keep it there. Let's move on to jungle. Let's do the same thing, but instead of OTP tier, we will say AD mid tier. Let's do AD mid tier, and then let's say new. I think Vi is a champion that kind of breaks the whole game. Same reason as before, right? It's like you can find a lot of answers into Vi. Definitely find a lot of answers into Vi and make her weaker, right? But you have to always follow the context of the meta. The context of the meta right now is very AD centric. If Zeriumi is in the game, Lucianami is in the game, Aphelios is in the game, then Vi is just great. I think Vi is just great. Maokai, it's like Maokai is in the AD mid tier, but when Maokai is an AD mid, I would say that like he's also Z tier. It's like the Maokai Jace comps are really, really strong, and then I would put, of course, Wukong here. Raibaro, Wukong, we have the usual suspects. We have Viego and Sejuani. It's funny that the jungle meta has looked exactly the same for super long. And then I would put B tier. You know, there's some spots where Poppy is fantastic. There's spots where Nocturne is fantastic, right? There's spots where Kindred will be great. There will be spots where Kha'Zix will be playable, you know? There will be spots where I guess we could put Gragas up here too. He's a homie. Can put him in A tier. I think Elise also could be played here, but I think you need AD mid for that, homie. What else is there? I think the issue with Jarvan, right? The issue with Jarvan is that he runs into the Malphite problem, right? He runs into the Malphite problem. What is the Malphite problem? The Malphite problem is if the game is not, if you're not strong enough to create initiative, Jarvan becomes very weak. There's games, if you guys look at a lot of the Malphite games that are being played, it's like the idea of Malphite is, oh, the enemy's AD heavy, I'm just going to ult on enemy Aphelios and we're going to smack him up. Vagrame, thank you much for the tier 1, I appreciate it. You're going to completely deny the whole game, but in cases where you have to ult and your ult is down, you become so much weaker than the window of the enemy. It's like when the enemy trades flash for your ult in a Drake situation, you are just so useless. And that's my issue with Jarvan too. I still think that there's cases where you can argue that Jarvan can be played, but it's a tough sell, you know? It's a tough sell. I think like Jarvan is a better version of Xin Zhao, you know? I'll put Rumble here too. I think Rumble is very interesting. What else is there that could stand out? Maybe like Nidalee could be played sometimes because of Renekton showing up, but it's also like pretty tough, I'd say. Not super exciting. Doesn't like supplement bot too well. I think Nautilus, right? Nautilus can find spots where it's good. But I think Nautilus is definitely a lot weaker due to it not being played mid that much. Volibear is definitely something that belongs up there. Lee Sin, not so sold on Lee. Graves, Evelyn. At this point, you know, we are just, you know, Sion is, like I saw the Canyon Sion, well, that was like a draft specific thing, right? It's like, if we add a new tier, it's like flex value, right? We can put the flex value tier, then you can put like Sion. It's like if sending Sion into jungle secures you a really good matchup, then it can be dank. Nautilus securing a really good matchup, it can be really dank. Like I even went so far to play K'Sante, right? Like if someone goes way too deep to counter K'Sante, it can be very juicy, I think. Very juicy. Gragas is already standalone on A, right? So let's see if there's anything else that stands out. Like sure, you can throw some fiddles in there and so forth, but I think they are a lot more situational than some of the other APs, you know. A lot of the ADs mids and the AD top, they want to play a very accelerated game, and I think these other three champs are better at that. But Fiddlesticks definitely, like if you're a really good fiddle, you can definitely like do some serious damage. Udyr I think sometimes can be played. Where is he? Where did he go? Udyr, you know, sometimes can be played. Trundle I think is a good shout here. But as you can see, right, like the B tier is filled with a lot of champs. But B tier is like, it's like when you drop 4-5, it's very tough to be super accurate with champions that are good. Very tough. Right? Diana is like, can be picked in some niche cases, right? If you have like the Yasuo's mid, which could happen, right, with the Gale Force. Thank you very much, Grim's Anarchy. Thank you very much. I think at this point, you know, we don't need to fill out the whole list. You know, it's like Kindred. Is Triforce Kindred not at least A? I think Triforce Kindred is very strong, right? I think it's very important to separate what solo queue is from competitive play. I think this is very important because in solo queue there's the implied idea of the better jungler actually getting, you know, a lot more gold. That's why a lot of junglers do really well in solo queue that don't necessarily translate well to pro play. Because the tracking of jungle and the usage of wards and the usage of information and the importance of hitting the right beats is far more important in competitive play. If you sacrifice a solid minute to get a gank going, the level of punishment that you get, you know? We saw it at Worlds and was decent. Now I feel it's better, no? We saw it at Worlds. Yeah, it was a lot of games where it was not so useful at MSI, I think, as well, right? I think the fact that, for example, On not playing Kindred doesn't want to play Kindred, I think is already telling, right? I definitely think that Kindred with Trinity Force, it's like, let me just explain the B tier once again and then we can move on. The B tier represents a pool of champions that can be really good in not so many spots. These champions will be far more common, the above ones, because they are a lot more flexible and they don't have a lot of natural counters in the context of the meta, right? It's like, why is Wukong so strong, right? Just Divine Zanderer, the majority early game clears very, very slow, right? Clears very slow. But he has an innate ability to reach ADs and knock them up. It is a threat, a guaranteed threat. The same way Vi is a guaranteed threat. To outplay a Wukong is to hope that he outplays himself. The knock-up will hit you. Sure, you can predict flash, you can do some moves, you can place, you have champions in counter and so forth. There's definitely counterplay against Wukong. But in the context of what bot lane is right now and what mid lane is right now, these champions are really, really good for it, right? In terms of adding anything else, I think that's a fine place to start. Like, sure, you know, a player like Yike, if we just pull up, let's just pull up his low pros just to keep it interesting, right? Ivan is disabled. Just pull up Yike. I'm curious. Let's see what Yike has been up to. Because of course, Yike is an outlier, right? Yike is definitely an outlier. So he's been playing the Belveth. He's been playing Lee Sin for some reason. Not sure why. Kindred with Trinity Force makes sense, right? Kindred with Trinity Force looks super strong in solo queue. We have some Gold Drinker Graves. That doesn't look like a great build right there. This looks like a terrible. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I think we've covered the majority of it, you know. We've covered the majority of it. Once again, it's like Poppy can 1v9 a game, but it's a lot more rare that Poppy will 1v9 a game. Like these are going to be picked a lot more in more niche cases. I don't think Graves is good in the context of what the bot lane meta is. You don't want... It's like if G2 walk into... It's like G2 can try to be the southpaw of what European League of Legends is, and they can find a lot of success with that. But I still feel like the bot lane meta is quite bot lane centric. And I think that when you pick junglers that want to be selfish, it kind of goes against the theorem of what bot lane is right now. So let's duplicate this shit. I think Poppy's fine, yeah. Alright, let's talk mid lane. Let's do a little OTP, maybe a little new tier. Let me think here for a moment. So what do we have? So we have Annie. We have Ari. We have Nico, that's for sure. This champion is not okay, I think. I think Nico probably Z tier. I think Nico, I think the quality of life changes to Nico with the ult and the W are a little bit too crazy. And I think that with time, probably this can move down. With time, this will move down. But currently, when people don't know shit about this champion, fucking fall for the same thing over and over again, and they don't press tab to see if she's available or not, I think that that shit is a bit silly. I think the quality of light change of W and R is just... It's like when you turn into a minion or whatever the fuck in your R and the first thing that occurs is a knock-up. I think that's a bit too stupid, in my opinion. A bit too stupid. And she has decent lane matchups, goes along with the pacing of the game really, really well. And is generally speaking super strong. So I think this champion is really good. Instead of OTP, we'll do AD mid tier. A little AD mid tier, because like the AD's mids are very comp reliant, right? I think that Yone could be played here. I think that Yone with Gale Force is definitely interesting. Tristana can be played here too with the Gale Force changes. I mean Gale Force, not Gale Force, Kraken first is definitely good. Zed for leader. I think if we begin to do this tier list for our boy leader, I think we're going to eat up a lot of space here. I think Victor is very interesting with the mandate. Put him there. Syndra as well. Put him there. What else are we cooking? What else are we cooking? I think that Yasuo could also maybe show up. Maybe, right? What else? What else are we thinking? Maybe Lissandra. I think Lissandra is going to be a little bit more rare. I think Talia has some spots too, but a little bit more jungle reliant. I think that we could see maybe Azir could show up. We have some players in the league that definitely could play some Azir, and I think the recent batch of buffs are pretty good. I think LeBlanc and Silas are a little bit too niche for my taste. A little bit too niche for my taste. Swain, I think low-key is OP in some cases. So I can put him in a little new tier, a little new. I think Cassio belongs in this tier. I don't know what the odds are of like a ADTF showing up. I think K-Santa we can put there too, of course. K-Santa. I think Dragoon we can put here too. A little Dragoon in the A tier. A little... What else do we have? If Azir is showing up, I guess Corki needs to show up too, that fucking asshole. Little like... Asol, I think with... I think Asol probably should be fine. It's like he's receiving nerf after nerf after nerf. But definitely... Kiana, I don't see who's going to play Kiana in the league. Like... You want the leader tier? Yeah, leader tier. Leader. Let's fucking leader. Let's just fucking put Kiana there. But the thing is, like, it's already 13-11, you know? It's already 13-11, and Kiana got worse, you know? So, like, what are we doing this? It's like, if it was 13-10, maybe we should move Aurelion Sol down. Yeah, we're moving down. The last Asol nerf was fucking hard as fuck. I agree. Showmaker Smurfs with Asol in LCK, but that's 13-10. Alright, we just fill out this fucking leader tier. There you go, guys. There you go. There you go. And Takali too, yeah. There you go. Leader tier, yeah. Great. I think Orianna is dank on next patch. The next batch of buffs is crazy. What is leader tier? This is what leader plays. The next batch of buffs, I will put Orianna up, but I think that currently I would prioritize Victor Syndra over Orianna. And catch me outside, how about that if Victor Syndra is banned? I think this is mid. I think this is, if you look at this, right? If you look at this, I think that you can be very happy if you are a Fnatic fan or a Larsen fan. Very happy. Very, very happy. Very happy. Let's duplicate that bad boy. and make a little bot lane tier list. This is gonna be funky because, of course, it's like this is probably the role that got changed the most in terms of 1311, but it's relatively the same, I'd say. So we have Hurricane nerf, Navori buff AD, Storm Razor change, Kraken Slayer buff, slight Gale Force nerf, not the big one that happens in the next patch, but like in terms of Z tier, think it's like Zeri with Yumi, Z tier. It's like Milio lanes are pretty Z tier as well, I'd say. Lucian Nami, so it's like those homies, you know. I think those are pretty Z tier and up there and up and away, you know. And then it's like there's some answers there, right? There's some answers that can be very strong. Like for example, Twitch I think has great potential. Like when we first pick Zeri and you take Yumi Twitch, I think that can be very winning, you know? That can be very winning. I think Draven as well has some spots where it can be strong and it can dominate lane, but it requires a very specific game plan, right? It requires a very, very specific game plan. I think Caitlyn is not super exciting. Jhin got a bit of a nerf with the Storm Razor, but we have some Jhin enjoyers, right, in the league. I think Xayah is definitely super strong. I think that when some bans begin to show up, I think that Xayah Rakan definitely becomes super, super strong. Kalista definitely is a champion that also like can show up. I think sadly the likes of like Kai'Sa, Jhin, these champions are really like fucking low down in my opinion. I think that like considering what people are playing top and the rest of the pool of champs, it's just not exciting enough. Jhin does really well in solo queue always, even before the Storm Razor change, he did well in solo queue just because the context of solo queue is so different. You need to be mobile, you need to have strong lane, this is the most important. If you're playing Aphelios in solo queue, that's like, you know, dragging your balls through glass. It's just not a good time. Caitlyn, I think that she got like a pretty hefty nerf. Jinx, of course, belongs there too. A little Jinx. What else do we have here? I think Ashe is a little bit... it's okay-ish. Maybe just put these guys together there. Caitlyn is like... I don't like Kate. I don't like... But this is for LEC, guys. This is all for LEC. This is all for LEC. Severe. No... I think that's like, it's like fucking, you have this pile of champs you just shouldn't play, you know. It's like, why on earth would you ever want to play any of these champs when these exist? I think I have to move this down, put it like this. I think Ziggs could be interesting, but it's very comp reliant. It's like Ziggs, Karthus, right? It's like these champs are very comp reliant. It's like you can't just plug and play them, but like if you're playing Jace, Maokai, Ziggs, you can be very strong with these champs. Kog'Maw, I think, could be played into like Lucian Nami maybe with Lulu, right? It's like could show up, but I don't think it's like super exciting, I'd say. I would probably like prioritize some of the others before they'd show up. I think this is where I would land somewhere. Senna. So what would you even buy on Senna? What would you even buy on Senna nowadays? It's a little Eclipse. Now, why would you play Senna when range supports are so OP, man? I don't know. It's like... I have never found Senna to be good if supports are broken. Why would you want to play Senna if it's like... Why would you want to play Senna if all the range supports are so busted? It's like the support items so cheap. Why would you want to pick a champ bot to buy garbage? Maybe like Senna can be played if you're playing into the range supports and you have like a lane that you're winning, like into something, but I can't imagine it. Oh, Yob Whip. I think MF is pretty solid, especially as a counter to Philips Blind. Yeah, I can see that. I don't know how easy it is to play Misfortune. Yeah, I'm not super sold on some Misfortune action. Not super sold on some Misfortune action. That's so frustrating because my recording reset. That's a bit silly. I can see, I could put Misfortune up here. But of course, keep in mind these ADs are very super reliant, you know? I just duplicate this. And we talk about the range soups. A little bit of range soup action. I think that like obviously all of these super champs are just like very AD carry reliant. It's like they're all just up there, you know. This is what a life we're living, my friends. What a life we are living. It's like Rakan deserves to be alone there. No one else deserves to be in this position. What else? A little blitz. I think Braum can show up when like a lot of support bans happen. Like support is such a weird role, guys. It's such a silly role. Like what am I doing here, you know? What are we doing here? I think Janna can be low-key like decent sometimes. Janna can be low-key decent. Maybe like some Karma action. Some Karma Ezreal action. What else is there? Trash. Yeah, Trash can be played. Trash can have some gameplay. Heimerdinger. Soraka, man. Momo jungle is too much of a thing for it to show up. I'm not a big fan of the Ashe, honestly. Not a big fan of the Ashe. Lux is garbage, I think. Don't play Lux. Loki, if Ivan was enabled, it would be here, bro. Like, it would be like here, dude. Bard, don't play Bard. I think. Rel is disabled. Any flex? No, don't play it support. I think just slam it mid. There's no point. Sona, maybe sometimes, right? It's like if the enemy steals away Nami or some shit, you know, Sona can be played definitely. Zillion has like some turbo spot, you know. It's like rare spawn. It's like fucking rare spawn. It's like put Zillion there, you know. This is a rare spawn. Well, we can put a little what's another rare spawn? What's the champion I was thinking about? Fuck my life. Sona, yeah. Sona. I had to put Ashe somewhere, probably I would put it like here. Here-ish. Tam as well. I don't think it's B tier. Not a big fan of Tam, honestly. Alice the cow is there. Rel jungle. Rel is disabled. Alright. I like these are my kind of expectations for what I'll see. I kind of did this list impromptu. Maybe I'll think of something, whatever. You guys will catch it on, of course, the co-view. So don't worry about it.
I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had
Fuck is this song, mate?
Six-pack abs.
We skipped that. Alright, enough about the what about this champ. Let's continue. So it's very important that you guys are aware of what the format is, right? Basically, we're moving into a very unique stage of the format where we're going to have 2 back-to-back splits, but the second split being very different from the first, moving into summer. We're going to have 6 weeks of play, where for those who don't know, there's going to be 3 weeks of best of ones. So basically 3 super weeks of gameplay, and then the top 8 is going to qualify to 2 groups where they're going to be playing a best of 3s. And the simple way of viewing the best of 3s is lose twice and you're out, win twice and you're in. That is the easy way of viewing it. And when I say in, it means that you're in into the best of 5 section. The best of 5 section then of course is a gauntlet depending on the seeding, and that seeding, all of those matches will be played on the same weekend, which can be very, very tough, but we've seen Mad Lions do it. Speaking of basically the split finals, they will be determined by the points. So a lot of Fnatic fans out there know already that Fnatic need to do really, really fucking well. And the easy way of viewing this, right, is that Fnatic hopes that XL and Team Heretics also do well to limp right behind them, just to create chaos in the upper positions, and the fact that Fnatic raise higher. The fact that they have 30 points is very rough, which means that Fnatic, like at a minimum, needs to do a top 3 run in order to qualify. Assuming, SK and Astralis and Koi are the teams that are going to do worse, right? So it's not like entirely out of the universe, right? If there's a world now where Koi without VN is going to do super shit, and Fnatic with, of course, the addition of Trimby is going to do a lot better, I think that can be very good, right? So basically, Fnatic fans, you're hoping that the teams that are basically qualified in the current state of things are going to do a lot worse, because, of course, the teams to beat into the top 6 are, of course, these teams. If you win a split, you already qualify to the season playoffs, the season finals. The top 6 teams will then be playing a double elimination bracket where the 2 lowest seeds will start in the lower bracket, and it will just be a best of 5 playoffs. For those who are curious about how the season finals bracket will play out, it is seed 1 versus seed 3-4. It's basically the old playoff system, right? Where basically seed 1 gets to choose between 3 and 4, and then seed 2 will play against 3 and 4, and then seed 5 and 6 are in the lower brackets. If you seed 1, at minimum, you will be playing a qualifying match against North America, and that qualifying match against North America will be basically the 4th seed, which will be a representative of either Europe or North America. They play for that spot. And that match will be played in America this time around. That match will be played in America. So if you seed 1, meaning that you have the most points, because of course Winter 1 and Spring 1, they will qualify you to the competition, but then after the seeding will be determined by the points. Seed 1 won't automatically qualify, at least to BF4 versus NA. Are you sure? I guess you're right. It isn't the same system as the playoff system from the previous year. They just get to play right away. Seed 6 and Seed 5 don't play each other. It is better now. You're right, Marcin. Good spotting. Thank you. Thank you for paying attention. So forget what I just said. Basically, we have this situation where you play Seed 5 and Seed 6 right away in the loser bracket if you lose. So there's no auto-qualification if you Seed 1. That's some good shit. There was something in the rule set that I just want to double check. Where's the rule set? I'm trying to find the rule set. Let's see now. Ownership, eligibility, championship points. The team who plays higher in the summer's playoffs shall be considered the highest seed. The teams will qualify for World Championship based on the final placement after the LEC season finals, with the first place securing first seed for the EMA and so on. As an exception, see 8-5-2 winning 3 splits. I think this is the rule that kind of confused me here. The team is guaranteed the lowest seed for the EME region at the World Championship. The team can improve the world seeding with their final standing at the LEC season finals. This is what was confusing to me. This is what was weird to me. I was not so sure why this is in place. Well, of course, G2 didn't win both splits, so it's not that relevant. But this made me think that the... You do qualify for Worlds if you win 3 splits. I just don't know how the bracket would look like. You know? The bracket would look kind of weird. Anyhow, we continue. So, the long story short, you know, if you're a Fnatic fan, you want them to do well, and you want some of the other teams in the top 6. Basically, you want Mad Lions and G2 to keep doing well. Because their points, you're not going to catch up to them ever. You're not going to catch up to those points ever, so you're basically hoping that, of course, G2 Mad Lions continue to do well, and as Fnatic you break through, and that Koi Astralis are the teams that you break apart. Right? That's the hope here. Now, in terms of my tier list, let's just make sure that you guys don't get flashbanged. I think my number 1 team and the number 1 contender and the team to beat is still G2. I think that G2 still have shown a very high quality of gameplay. I think in terms of, like, the one fear for G2 is the fact that, you know, the meta is still very bot-centric, but in a very different manner than what G2 is accustomed to. And also Caps' performance hasn't been like a, you know, League of Legends delight, so to speak. And I think those are the main concerns. But at the same time, I think the G2, you know, in terms of their jungle play, in terms of what BB showed at MSI, I think that these guys are still the team to beat. I think that they show the highest class in terms of macro gameplay. I think that they have, you know, still a very clever way of approaching the meta and, you know, making Koreans, you know, pick up Nautilus mid and mind control them, you know? And I think the G2 still, in the context of the LEC, is still their own worst enemy. And I have the expectation that with G2 and the time off after MSI, that this is a team that will just continue to grow. I think that in terms of the level they showed at the beginning of the season and a lot of the strengths that they have on an individual basis and a team basis, I think G2 is still going to be the team to beat. And I don't think any team necessarily is a team that belongs right next to them. I think the next one in line here, Mad Lions, I think a lot of teams are very down on them after MSI. They lost 3-0 to T1 and then 3-0 against G2 as well. I think that Mad Lions is a team that seems to have a very, very, you know, fragile balance to keep. Like for Mad Lions to maintain balance and a good play, it seems to be something that is disruptible, and their floor is so far down. When things are not right for Mad, then things are terrible. I don't expect Mad Lions to do well at the beginning of the season. I expect them to limp through, just like they did every time before, and then they find ways to really solidify their first 3 picks, and then they have a way of finding their identity through those champions. I think that in terms of beating out the rest of the competition that isn't G2, I think that's something that really works. And I think that Mad Lions is a team that knows how to figure these things out. I think the key strength of Mad Lions is the fact that mid lane is a very different role than what Caps, the likes of Caps and Perks are used to. And I think this is where Niski can find advantages. And I think that Hilly and of course Elioya are very good at connecting in the game when things are going well. But the main concern there of course is that they have a pretty decent ceiling, but their floor is very low and they can play terrible games. I can see a world where Mad Lions maybe falter here if they can't find ways to find edges in the meta, because, you know, a big part of their success is just their 1-2-3. Chasey's wonderful play in playoffs, which shouldn't go unnoticed just because of his MSI play. Chasey was by far the best performing top laner in the playoffs. Elioya stepping up to the plate, Hilly too. You know, can we see a world where Hilly is going to play Milio? Can we see a world where Hilly is going to play Yumi? Can we see a world where Hilly is going to be playing a lot of these champs? You know, this is going to be concerning on 30.11. But we're hoping on 13.13 that the meta will shift up, and then maybe, you know, Hilly is going to be a fantastic player and an impactful player, because this is what he does so well. Maybe we'll see Hilly play Nautilus, Hilly still play some Pikes, but I think that the first initial weeks here for Mad Lions are going to be quite tough. I think BDS probably I put, like here, it depends on your flavor, right? It's like, I think knowing where the direction of the future patches are going, I think that Mad Lions is going to be well off. But in the beginning, I think Mad Lions is going to have a hard time. Mad Lions, I can easily see Labrov playing Milio, playing the Yumi, playing the Lulu. And I think that BDS is a team that is, you know, they were ahead of the curve in terms of analyzing what the meta is. And I can see a world where BDS still in the regular split can end up first, because I think a lot of the things they did in the regular split can definitely be something that they replicate. But then again, I think that BDS still will struggle to break through at the end of the season. I think that's going to be the main concern. So this is where things are going to look a little bit different for me, because now if I look at what B tier should represent, I think B tier should represent the teams that I expect to make a breakthrough into the top 3. And I will order them, basically the teams that I believe have a chance of making a breakthrough in the top 3. And basically I will order them by what I think are the highest odds. And this is where I'll put Fnatic. I think Fnatic made insanely positive changes. I think Fnatic made insanely positive changes. I think that they made massive upgrades in both bot and support. I don't see, like, I understand that Koi was a roster that played together for a long time, right? I think that I understand if they felt the need to make some changes and they traded Trimby to while they could, you know, maybe had an expensive contract, something like this, right? Like Koi made changes, right? Koi made changes because things obviously weren't working for them, so they made some changes. I think on paper though, Trimby is a far more valuable player than Advien. I think Advien, no offense to Advien, obviously he will take offense because he's a professional player and he cares a lot about, you know his level of play. But I just don't think that he's that great. I don't think he's that great. I think he had a fine Blitzcrank game, but I think in terms of what he needs to do as a support, in terms of the macro game, when he needs to be mid, how he needs to connect, how he needs to play the map, I think Advien doesn't know what the fuck he does. I don't think he knows what the fuck he's doing. I don't think that he knows what the fuck he's doing. And you could see that visibly in a lot of the Fnatic games. I don't think he knew what the fuck he was doing. And I think that's going to be tough because I think Trimby has shown the opposite. I think Trimby has shown high level gameplay. And I think Trimby, of course, he hasn't had the best year. I still believe in players that have shown, you know, like a player that has shown that they can play at the highest level within the region. I'm far more confident than a player like that in a new environment can find that peak again than a player that has never found that, right? So I think that Noah and Trimby, I think they're going to add something to the mix, considering, you know, what I mentioned about Hilly and his support pool. You know, current this support pool, this support meta, I think is wonderful for someone like Trimby. You're very mechanically talented, very good on the range supports. I think that's going to be super, super positive for him. I think Noah, you know, someone mentioned like the EU Masters results. I think Noah, Noah's the player that I haven't watched too much Peach, right? I haven't watched too much Peach. Like Noah, I watched a lot of his stream, and that's enough for me to know how much how good a player is. It's not results oriented. I think this guy is just pretty damn good at the game. And I think that if someone's gonna break through into the top 3, I'd put Fnatic to be my biggest voice of confidence. Biggest vote of confidence here. Now we continue. I would put Vitality right next to them. I think Vitality still, you know, they were quite underwhelming. I think that something that should be put into question is Photon's performance in best of 5s and longest series. I think that's super, super underwhelming. Photon is an absolute machine in the regular season, and I think this is where he does so well. I think that Vitality's bot lane in terms of laning are lacking teeth. And this is something that Kaiser really needs to figure out, because in terms of laning, I don't see him as that guy. I think Upset is a player that I think basically the issue for Upset right now in Vitality is that I don't think that Bo and Kaiser are like basically playing well enough to give Upset the platform to really dominate games. And I think that makes Vitality's games look a lot more wonky than they need to. And I think that would be the toughest challenge, you know? It's like Kaiser, once again, he's walking into a split that requires... It's like people think that laning these super range matchups is easy, but it's actually pretty damn hard. It's pretty damn hard. It's very clinically precise. Like, you make a wrong move, you make a bad trade, and you'll bleed for it. It is very hard to play these range super matchups. And I think that that is going to be a very big pain point for Kaiser and Vitality. I think Bo is a player that is very good at shitting on teams and players that are not playing precise. And if you put Bo in mechanical circumstances, I think that he is still one of the best mechanical players in the whole league. But to be honest, that only takes you so far. Sheo was not doing anything flashy last split, but he played a very good and controlled game, and he secured bot and pressured bot really well. That was the only thing that mattered last split. And that's why Sheo was in conversation of being the best jungler of spring, right? And that's not something that Bo is doing so well. And I don't want to put the whole blame on Bo, because in reality, the context there is the whole team, right? How do you play around jungle? How do you utilize jungle? I could see a world where, you know, these things, it's like, I think the best thing for Fnatic and Vitality is the fact that I think A tier is not solid at all. Like, this is borderline A minus, you know? I think Mad Lions and BDS, there's definitely fucking trap holes these guys can jump into and really hurt themselves in the process, right? I don't think by any stretch of the imagination these guys are like really, really solid up here. I really don't think so. And I think that some shakeups can definitely happen here. Definitely. Choking has lost all of its meaning as a word. Definitely, yeah. But I would say Photon, in terms of his performance, I think that you can definitely say something like, yeah, this guy's choking. Something I wanted to add about Fnatic, because I talked about the bot lane. I think Humanoid as well is walking into a more comfortable mid lane situation for him. I think that's going to be massive. I think Trimby will do a better job of impacting mid. And I think that Humanoid has an opportunity to be the best mid laner in Europe here. Because I don't think that the other mid lane performances are that standout. And I think that there's a lot of champions in the meta that are really, really good for Humanoid. So I think that's a big plus. Additionally, I like the player that I'm the most worried about on Fnatic is still Oscarinin. I don't think Oscarinin... I think Oscarinin got way too overhyped. Way too overhyped. Insanely overhyped. And I think that... I think that's like the weak point for Fnatic still. And I think Oscarino got insanely overhyped, but then again, you know, he only played one split, you know. Like, sure, he can get better, but I think my man is really overhyped. And I think that he's going to be the weak point of Oscarinin. You're heavily underrating Oscar if you think he's the weak link. No, I just watched the games. Yeah, guys, I think that I have a better opinion than most of the chatters in terms of what the consensus is in the community, you know, because I keep my hand close to the pulse of this, you know. Guy thinks Humanoid can be the best player in the league. Well, in the mid lane position, yes. But you need to remember the context, right? It's like, you are only hearing, wow, Humanoid best player in the league. But it's like, I'm thinking about everything else, you know? Can you show us what he did bad? I don't have time for that. I can say that I watched all of the games and I wasn't impressed. I think he had a good Olaf game, he had a good Jax game. But when some bans started flying in his direction, he was not existent on the map. Yeah, it's like it's like the Fnatic went on a little bit of a win streak, and it's like Oscarine had a good game against G2. I think that was a good game against G2, yes. But other than that, it's like when he was playing, like he could play Jax, he could play occasional Olaf, but I just he was a straight up liability on anything else. The real overrated players for top lane are Chasey and Photon on our lane onboard. So Lenino, you've now proven that you don't watch. So basically it's like Chasey dominated whole LEC playoffs. Photon dominated regular split and then shat the bed in playoffs. But Chasey would shat on everyone. Like, I know... And I think Humanoid has the potential to be the best mid laner in the league for sure. It's like looking at the state of mid lane in Europe, I think it's for the taking. I can see Caps up there, I can see Niski being up there, I can see Humanoid being up there because it's for the taking right now. It's definitely for the taking. So mid lane is looking really like weak in Europe. But okay, we continue, guys. Let's not get one guide, yeah? Let's not get one guide. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and that's what makes everything exciting. I think that, you know, I'm considering putting Astralis B or C, you know? Maybe I'm romanticizing too much watching Finn in Champions Queue, because this guy is actually like a good player, you know? He's actually fucking good. But I don't see that. I wish I could see that side of him more often in games, you know? I think that Leader eventually got to a point in playoffs where my man was like a liability, I think. There was no like uniqueness to it, and I think that when teams got to actually, you know, when teams actually got to sit down and prepare a best of 3 against Astralis, because keep in mind, it's like super weeks on super weeks. The best thing you can be in super weeks is either you play the same plan over and over again, and or you are the team that is really awkward. So we had two sides of that, right? It's like Astralis was a team that was very unique, and basically people blind pick Lissandra and shit into the leader, like, what the fuck, man? Well, what's going on there, man? In BBO1s, people didn't know what the fuck they were doing against Astralis, and Leader got a lot of good angles. But then in best of 3s, my man, that was looking very rough. Very rough. And if it wasn't for Fnatic inviting Irelia on 4-5 with the fucking Orianna blind on 4, then maybe Astralis would have lost it against even Fnatic, because that was a damn close series. Yeah? Very damn close series. So I will put Astralis here in C. Obviously 113 played very bad in terms of gameplay. Like, this guy is only 1 gear. It's like he reaches level 3 regardless of what champion he plays. Regardless of what champion he plays, he wants to fight level 3. Whether his name is Maokai, Gragas, Wu, whatever. Like, he has only like one way to play the game, and I think that's tough too. I think the big plus here for Astralis, I still think that Kobe and Yonghoon are fantastic players, and I think that they'll be able to carry a couple of games. And that's it. 13-12 official patch notes out. Well, we're talking about LEC, mate. But anyhow, we put Astralis there. Out of these 4 teams, I would want to put SK here. Like, the reason I put SK here is because still, I think in the context of the meta, I still think that, you know, Yumi's back, Lulu's back, Milio's back. I think this is where DOS and Exakick are comfortable. I could see them maybe edging in here too, but I don't think they have the individual firepower to really cross over here, and I don't see any ingenuity there that will push them across the board here. I think Exakick and DOS, they will live and die by them, and I think the Shigenda, sorry, not Shigenda, what's his name? I think Irrelevant is a good weak side top laner. I think that, you know, Certus has had some fine games. I think Mr. Why am I skip? Bro, it's my buddy. I played poker with him. The Dutch jungler. What the fuck is his name? Marcoon. I think, yeah, he has good games, bad games. You know, I could see them breaking through, you know, but always as the season progresses, you know, I feel it's hard to be excited by SK because of the spring split. I think Marcoon had a really rough time. I think DOS played absolute garbage. Like, some of those trash games, they are really ingrained in my memory, you know. It's hard to get excited by SK. I think the one plus side is the fact that, yo, these guys maybe, you know, in a world where, you know, in a world where the super meta really translates well for Exakick and DOS, you know, maybe that's a thing for them, because at the peak of SK, they had the Scions top, they had the Yumis, and they played for bottom side and things went well. But I think the issue for SK is just they really didn't really find consistency what their early game was, and they bled too hard in games where, you know, where the enemy won the early game. In regards to the other 3, it's like I would put Koi here on to really like edge into playoffs. I put Team Heretics 9th and then Excel last. I have to admit, I don't know too much about Peach, besides the fact that he played in Prime League and he lost against the Wildcats. Maybe Peach is the next Canyon. if that's the case, I don't mind being wrong. I think Team Heretics, it's like they made some changes in their positions, but I think that there might be an argument to move things to like this even. Team Heretics still have Evi, right? And I think that Ruby like stepped up. I think that I have to say, you know, I understand that Viteo was going through some personal trouble, you know, and I know that Viteo went through some personal trouble and so forth, and I'm happy for him that he found a new team, you know. I think that's great to know. But I wasn't that excited about Viteo even. I wasn't excited about Viteo even before the split. So there's that, right? I think that the whole Misfits thing, I think he had a lot of players around him, like Zanzara and Mercer, that really set him up for success. And Viteo never translated into anything when it came to BO5s. And for me, Flacket Jack, it's like, you know, let me tell you guys something. Viteo never won a BO5 in playoffs. And I put Viteo and Patrick in the same box like that because when it came to actually, you know, performing in bigger matchups where players that they face are going to actually, you know, put up good form, I didn't see the same player. I didn't see the same player that we saw in the regular splits. I don't put too much stock into regular split games. It's like I watch them and I make an opinion, but I put a heavy emphasis on what teams do in best of threes and BO5s and so forth. I just find these games in these days to be more impactful in terms of how I shape my opinion about players. Yeah, I thought Crownie was fine, but obviously last split improved the opinion of Crownie for me, and Crownie is a personal friend, right? I think Crownie played good in spring and in winter, and these are things that you pay attention to, right? I think that to not have a super high opinion of Crownie before this year, I think makes sense, right? Because he definitely wasn't a standout player on some of the previous LEC teams that he played on, right? But yeah, Flacket Jack, I can admit I haven't watched too much Flacket in the LVP, right? But at least my gut tells me that this is like a slight upgrade, side grade at most, you know? Still think, you know, in terms of some of the pain points the Team Heretics has, I don't think that Viteo is going to solve them. And the fact that Evie is there and Mercer's there, you know, I need to be proved. I need to, you know, you need to prove me something, you know? Flacket in the Heroes was pretty on form in my opinion. Well, it's like Jack Spectra's doing good too, no? Right now? So looking good in the RLs is way easier than it is to look good in the LEC. Tell you that much. But yeah. In the end, you know, I think XO, maybe Peach is amazing. You know, maybe Peach is amazing, but I just struggle to get excited here. You know? I think Limit was probably the worst performing support in the league, you know? And that's it. Yeah, you guys are entitled to your own opinions, but you can't tell me that my opinion and my list, that I should make changes based off your opinions. So that's it. That's it. Obviously, this is my list, so it will come with biases. And you're also entitled to your own opinion. I like to have that conversation with you guys, and it's fun to have that discussion. Even though I think Lenino is crazy, I'm happy that he's here and he's engaging in the chat, you know? Now, looking at some of the matchups, my predictions. Predictions are always fun, right? Predictions are always fun. Mad Lions versus Team Vitality. I think Team Vitality is going to win. Team Brazil versus SK Gaming. Absolute banger. I think that SK is going to take that one, but I could see it going either way. Koi versus XL. Damn, we are, you know, there's some dirty gaming here in the beginning. Might as well get it out of the way. We missed LEC so much, so might as well just get it out of our system. I think Koi is going to win that one, and let's say SK is going to win that one because of the tier list, but we shall see. G2 versus Team BDS. I think G2 is going to take that one, and then Fnatic versus Astralis. I'm going to go Team Fnatic. But Astralis, I think facing Astralis in the opening game is definitely frustrating. Definitely frustrating there, you know, because these are going to be the guys who are going to be awkward. So you'd rather watch them play, but God bless. Team Vitality versus SK, I think Vitality takes it home. I think Fnatic takes this one home. G2 takes this one home. And then Team BDS take this one home. And then finally Astralis beat Team Heretics in the match of the week. What is that? Yeah, but definitely it's like Fnatic facing Astralis in the opening match is definitely worse for Fnatic. This is match of the week. How is this the match of the week? Because usually it's like on the Sunday. This is the match of the week. That's mental. Exa versus SK Gaming, I think SK, and then Team BDS, I think is going to be the Astralis. Mad is going to be Koi. I think this is where Mad Lions are going to renew their hope after losing 2 games. Fnatic versus G2, absolute banger. Why is this not the match of the week, guys? I think it's because of co-streaming rights. Why did the Astralis get co-streaming rights? Can someone explain that shit to me? What happened there? What happened there, guys? Do they have some turbo streamer behind the Astralis or something? Is expected co-streaming? I think G2 will beat Fnatic, and then Team Vitality is gonna smoke Team Heretics like tomorrow's barbecue. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that is my rundown of the LEC. I think we covered everything that is interesting, in my opinion. We covered some meta predictions, some meta conversation. We talked about the tier list. We talked about the format. And we made a little tier list. We made a little tier list. If you missed any section of this during the stream, this, of course, will be uploaded on YouTube. And tomorrow, as a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, I will be co-streaming the LPL, the LCS, the Falafel, aka LFL,